Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Dan Rubin is off today. All right, a lot to get into, my friend. Let's start with just your main takeaways from spring. I'll ask you some specific questions in a moment. But just with spring ball now in the rearview mirror, what were your main takeaways from spring ball, Steve?
Yeah, the big thing they talked about was competition, and we saw a lot of that on Saturday. I mean, yeah, it wasn't maybe the most exciting game ever played, but I think the defense definitely has shown marked improvement. There were 109 plays that they ran on Saturday, so it was almost a full game's worth of football crammed into 2 hours there. And I just thought, on the whole, that to me, you had a lot of young guys who got opportunities for the first time to show what they are capable of doing. I agree with just about everybody that the offensive line has got to play better. But again, these guys go against each other for 15 days. There's only so many different ways that you're going to show the defensive line how you're going to block them. So there is a little bit of monotony involved in that. I think when you're going up against somebody sight unseen as a defensive line, you're going to have a little bit more trouble getting into the backfield probably than what Tui Malo, Al Sawyer, and the boys were able to exhibit on Saturday. There was one play early in the game, Dave, where it looked like Fryer reached up and grabbed Tui Malo and dragged him to the ground as they were falling down. And Day must have been standing right next to the one referee who was standing right next to him. Said, "Let that go, let that go." So
they're already getting killed enough. Let that go.
Yeah. So definite room for improvement on the offensive line, and I think that given 4.5 months, Justin Fryer, Tegra Toshbola, Zen Mahalski, those guys in particular, and then the center thing is kind of a separate thing, but I think those guys that I mentioned, they're going to drill down on the tape, drill down on agility, drill down on strength, drill down on punching, stepping, everything it takes to be a great tackle in the Big Ten. They've got 4.5 months now to go through very intensive one-on-one type drills for the next. It's kind of like Vision Quest or whatever. They got 4.5 months to get it figured out. I know there's a lot of talk about finding a guy in the transfer portal.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yep.
Yeah, but Jonah Jackson exists out there, who's an offensive tackle. Use that as an example from Rutgers as a guard a few years ago. Then I assume they're going to make a play for him. We saw that the kicker, Siebert, entered the transfer portal. They need 3 more to leave to get legal, and then would need to take another one off the roster beyond that to be able to add somebody to the roster. So, some underlays or some layers are going to get pulled away from the onion here, it looks like, in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm still here. I was going to ask. It's funny that you brought that up. I was going to ask you because we talked about this on What We Learned Live right after the spring game when I had you on. Like, I'm hearing the Ohio State feels very, very, very good about their chances of landing an offensive tackle. You're taking more of the I'll believe it when I see it approach, right?
Well, again, I'm not privy to all their discussions with any potential transfers who may enter the portal or who are in the portal. I know Texas A&M had a guy who was a stud tackle who entered the portal, and what does that mean? I mean, does he already have a destination in mind? I don't know. I think Wyckoff, maybe his name or something like that. Wyckoff. I don't know. I don't know any specifics, and that's right. The problem is, I mean, we're not part of the process when it comes to recruiting and landing transfer portal players. So it is a little bit cloaked in secrecy. It's like we'll talk about the basketball guy in a minute, but nothing was really discussed about that guy until after he had visited Ohio State. So there wasn't much out there about it.
I like it. We have a dogs barking on a show. It's the Bucknuts Morning 5. Love it. It's a nice little background music. All right, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown. How do you see that shaking out? Is it definitely McCord's job? Can Brown win the job? Whoever wins the job, are you confident in them? A lot to unpack there. Where are you at with quarterback, Steve?
Well, one of our posters found a video of all of McCord's throws, and it was a really quick 6-minute watch, and it was impressive to me. I thought on the whole it was impressive. I could also understand a little bit his frustration with how the day ended up going, because he was under almost constant duress. And he also was victimized by some drops. There was one that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but he threw the ball, it appeared to me, into traffic, but it went right off Cade Stover's hands at the 5-yard line. And if they complete that pass and then punch that one into the end zone instead of kicking a field goal, then his day looks a little bit different to have 2 touchdowns. And I mean, that play could have been a touchdown if he catches it and stays upright. So, and there were others. I mean, Ballard had one go off of his hands, and there are different people saying different things about his performance, and I think people are looking for ways to poke holes in it, looking maybe a little too hard to poke holes in it. I just think that he was put for a spring game. He was put in a lot of tough situations, but he's also a third-year guy, so he should be able to handle those tough situations, even though he hasn't played a lot of game snaps. We were kind of talking afterwards, how us reporters like to mingle and discuss this and discuss that, about how it ended up being a perfectly good situation for Ryan Day. He's like, well, I can't possibly name a starter because we didn't get to see what Devin Brown could fully do, So, even if he is leaning toward McCord at this point, and I believe McCord does have the inside track with the seniority that he has, and I didn't see anything really all spring long that would dissuade me from thinking he's not the guy. That was Coach Day's out, is that, well, Devin was hurt, so it's not fair to Devin to name a leader or winner when he was hurt. Now, if the injury, I don't think the injury would linger, but because it sounds like he'll be back to throwing within 3 or 4 weeks. But to me, I think that if something were to linger, then it would be easy to name McCord as the starter by default, because he's the only healthy guy you've got. Gebbia was nice, but he's not going to play, so he doesn't figure to play. So to me, I think it worked out just fine in terms of keeping everybody's involvement in the situation. Didn't appear like either guy was ready to transfer when they spoke after the game. And I think that's what Coach Day wants. He wants to carry this over to the fall camp and get a proper read at that time.
I find this interesting. This is one entering spring that wasn't too much on my radar as far as things that I found most interesting, but leaving spring, it definitely is. Pecking order at running back, assuming all 5 guys are healthy, which is an easy assumption to make now. Things could happen, but like everybody is on track to be healthy, including Evan Pryor, including, of course, Travion Henderson, who's actually cleared for, not that they're doing anything contact-wise, but he's going to be cleared for full summer conditioning, so he's going to be good to go. All right, so if Travion's healthy, Mayan's healthy, Evan Pryor's healthy, Chip Trainum coming off a really good spring, Steve. Not just the spring game. I was impressed every time we were out there with Chip. Dallin Hayden coming off a good true freshman season. He looked good in the spring. He's bulked up a little bit. Where are you at on the pecking order at running back for the 2023 season, Steve?
Well, that's a good question. I think that Travion Henderson, again, you said if everybody's healthy. In week 1, everybody figures they will be healthy unless there's some kind of a strange camp injury. Somebody takes a bad step, it hurts a foot or something, or an ankle or something like that. Everybody should be healthy. So that's one. Week 5, probably not everybody will be healthy the way that these guys get dinged up. But I think Travion Henderson is 1. I think Mayan Williams is 2. I think Chip Trayanum is probably now number 3, and Dallin Hayden is a very close number 4. But that's not a knock on Dallin Hayden at all. I think he's got tremendous ability, and we saw in the spring that he can make great runs just as easily as any of the other guys. Evan Pryor, he's in a tough spot at number 5. He's going to have to really show something early and often in spring. I mean, to knock that rust off during any kind of appreciable playing time, I think. I think he's got some potential to help them, but, man, that's going to be a tough job, I think, for Tony Alford to try and keep 4 running backs happy and healthy throughout the season. My guess is you'll go into most games with 3 of them being healthy and 1 of them not, is what'll probably happen. And that'll probably, and it'll probably rotate all season. Well, Pryor, I don't know what kind of a role he can have. I don't know. I mean, you got so many other guys who are all proven. I mean, it just, to me, I don't know. I don't know how they're so gun shy about playing guys who aren't proven. I mean, how does he prove himself at number 5? I don't know. I'm confused. He's stuck in a numbers game. If everybody's healthy, he is stuck in a numbers game.
I will say now he's coming off a tough injury, torn patellar tendon. But assuming he can get back to where he was, he did have a really good spring last year and was having a really good camp. And they were saying that they were going to find a role for him, even though he was going to be the number 3 tailback. They were talking about how they were going to find a role for him. So he does have that in his favor. I think he earned the coach's trust in spring ball last year, and then in camp, they were very happy with him. But you make a good point. You're coming off a serious injury like that. You and I have the exact same pecking order. It was tough, but somebody asked me on the post-game podcast for my pecking order 1 through 5, and I gave the exact same one you did. But
yeah, I put Trey on him over Hayden, but it's like,
I said the same thing. Right.
Probably depends on down and distance. What do we need? Hey, Hayden caught 5 passes out of the backfield in the game on Saturday, which, is running 12 carries for 30 yards. Doesn't say a whole lot. Some of that was thud, but which, he's probably going to gain another 5 or 10 yards. They had Mayan for like 4 for like 13 or 14. Reality, that's 4 for 25 because he wasn't going down on first contact. So, right. Yeah, he played really well, I thought.
Yeah, Mayan's tough to tackle. We know that. When he's healthy, I think people forget. I mean, not everybody, but because he was so banged up toward the end of the year, that's kind of like
he wasn't as effective.
Yeah, that was the impression he kind of left because I've heard fans kind of like downplay him, the last few months. So I'm like, early in the season when Mayan was healthy, he was really good. Yeah, he was playing through multiple injuries, as at the end of the year. Nothing serious enough to keep him out, but like he was banged up finger, banged up knee. I think he had something else. Like he was banged up. All right, let's finish the show talking some basketball. The Buckeyes with another transfer that they landed. Chris Holtman getting Dale Bonner, more of a depth piece, but I like this. Young man from Ohio, played at Baylor the last couple of years. I like this. 1 year of eligibility, left a guy that can come in there and back up Bruce Thornton, add a little depth there. Can you play some shooting guard? Your thoughts on the Buckeyes getting Dale Bonner, and also get into they landed Jamison Battle a few weeks ago, the transfer from Minnesota. He's a guy that could be like an impact player. Dale Bonner, more of a depth piece. Jamison Battle, a really good get. What are the Buckeyes getting with those guys, Steve?
Yeah, coming out of the Big Ten tournament at the end of the season, I said they needed to do 2 things. They needed to get a power forward, and they needed to get backcourt depth, a 3-point shooter, however you want to quantify that. Well, I think that check. They've done both of those things. And they believe they have the roster. I mean, the 4 guys who they are depending upon who are coming back, well, Key didn't play, but they were 5-2 down the stretch against Big Ten teams with 4 wins over NCAA tournament teams. So they think their mainstays that they are building around are Thornton, Roddy Gale at the 2, and Felix Akpar at the 5 with Zed Key also at the 5, both of them playing 20 minutes a game, theoretically, which should be a perfect rotation for the 2 of them, in my way of thinking, if they're both healthy and can play. So then you bring in the 4 freshmen, 3 of whom are top 60 roughly players who figure to play decent minutes. Again, 15 to 20 minutes a game. And that's Scotty Middleton at the wing and the 2, Tyson Chapman at the 1 and the 2, Devin Royal at the 3 and the 4, and then Austin Parks, he'll be there to back up at center as need be, kind of break glass in case of emergency type guy. And then what they needed were 2 more mainstays. Like I talked about, power forward, Jamison Battle will come in and be the 4. In his 4-year career, 2 years George Washington, 2 years at Minnesota, he has averaged 14 points a game. That's not this past season. That's over his entire 100 and some odd game career at college level. He has averaged 14 points a game. That is somebody that you just plug and play. I know he was a little bit banged up this past year. I know he comes from a losing program, has never played a minute in the NCAA tournament.
Maybe he will this coming season.
Maybe he will this coming season.
Maybe.
So that, to me, that was a good pickup. And knows the Big Ten, knows all the guys in the Big Ten, can score on all the guys in the Big Ten. Fine by me. This other guy, Dale Bonner, he's from Shaker Heights, Ohio. He's been on a bit of an odyssey. He redshirted 1 year at Division II Fairmont State in West Virginia. Then he averaged like 20 points a game for 2 years. And Drew down at Baylor was like, get me that guy from Division II Nowheresville down in West Virginia and brings him into Baylor. In the last 2 years, he's played on Baylor teams that were a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and this year a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. They won a game and lost a game both years, got upset both years in the second round. And he's played in high leverage situations against Texas, against Kansas, against Kansas State, Iowa State, all those great Big 12 teams that they told us about this year. This guy played in those games, averaged about 20 minutes a game, 5 points, like 3 assists, shot 37%, I think, on threes, and led the team in steals as well. So as a part-time player. So you got an Ohio guy coming back to Ohio to play his last year of college basketball, understands that they've got starters, Thornton and Gale at the 1 and 2. He's there to be the veteran behind those guys. I don't want to say he's this year's Ice Likely. I think he's a little bit better offensive player than Ice Likely, perhaps. I don't know. A lot of people at Baylor raved about this guy, that, you know, he was an important glue piece, and at the end of the year, he was playing some really good basketball. So to me, I see all sides of it. Of course, the naysayers on our message board, oh, just a guy, you know, whatever. It's like, you know, they made a value decision. They said that our 1 is Bruce Thornton and our 2 is Roddy Gale.
Right.
And they're not going to upset that apple cart. They want those guys to be there for 3 or 4 years, and you don't bring somebody in to screw up that chemistry. So then Roddy Gale goes off into the transfer portal. You don't do that. So they're going to win or lose with the guys they've got. And I think they've got enough to win. You know, as we talked about it, Dave, OSU fans weren't happy just with 20 wins and making the tournament. They want to get to 25, 30 wins and get deep in the tournament. And the jury is out whether this roster can do that. But I think this roster could certainly get them back to where they were. Andy Katz came out and said he's got them in number 3 in the Big Ten, you know, based on the guys they've added and the freshmen coming in. So
what are your expectations? You follow this team as close as anybody and have for years. What are your expectations for this 2023-24 season?
Yeah, you know, we don't know even yet what the schedule is. I think they're supposed to play Kentucky, I think, in the CBS Classic, and it's supposed to be in Atlanta, but there hasn't been an announcement yet. There's no more Big Ten ACC thing. I don't think they're going to be in the Gavitt games because there's only, you know, X number of Big East teams. Not everybody plays in that. So without knowing the schedule, how difficult they're going to make it.
Just look at the Big Ten.
Young team with
Big Ten.
What?
Do you agree with Andy Katz? You think they can be 3rd in the Big Ten? Because you're automatically in the NCAA tournament if you're
that
3rd.
Seems awfully ambitious to me. I think top 4, top 5, possibly. I mean, you'd have to have a special year to do that. You'd have to really go on the road and beat some people. And, you know, the Big Ten has added some players. Michigan's added some players. Indiana added the Ware kid from Oregon. So, you know, Hunter Dickinson, it seems, is going to go from Michigan to Maryland. So they're going to be right there. So I don't know. It's so early to say. I mean, I think the potential is there to get between 20 and 25 wins is what I would think. But a lot of that's dependent on who you play. And we don't right now. We have no idea. He could set up the schedule any way he wants. And it could be with 10 home games against, you know, Alcorn State. I mean, you just don't know. So I think there will be a marquee non-conference home game. They owe the fans that after last year. That was miserable last year to play all the key games on the road and have 6 bye games at home that nobody wanted to go to. So, yeah, they got to fix that. But otherwise, yeah, I can't imagine they're going to be too ambitious. Kentucky's going to be really good. So if that's who they play, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I saw the early Vegas lines that has Kentucky as the favorite to win the national championship. I was like, wow,
amazing.
That surprised me. So yeah, the home schedule for the Buckeyes was terrible last year, and the team was terrible last year. So
yeah,
hopefully, I'll take top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten, like you mentioned. And heck, if Andy Katz is right, we'll love that if they're 3rd in the Big Ten. Great stuff out of Steve Helwagen. I know you got to get running, my friend. Thank you for joining me. Thanks again to Steve. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.